Thank you so much for joining us for this specific panel on gender equity, finding your voice through sport. Mine, that's one of the first things you learn when you play volleyball. I was a volleyball player all my life. I also ran track, did both sports at Harvard. Actually went to school with James Blake, who you heard a little bit earlier. And it's the first thing you learn is to call the ball and say mine. Not just so that you can prove to someone that you're gonna go get that ball, but that you can show your teammates that you are there and that together you guys can win and succeed. And it was one of the first moments that I learned to assert myself and to find my voice, and I use that every day of my life. My name's Lolita Lopez. I'm a reporter here at NBC in Los Angeles, an investigative reporter. I was a former sports anchor as well in New York City. And now I am here, and I am always loving life and playing sports with these lovely ladies who are going to tell you more about what they do. But I want to introduce each and every one of them, and then we're going to delve into more about what gender equity really means. Donna Duvin is from International Rescue Committee. The video you saw there is her organization that she runs, formerly worked with the American Red Cross. And we look at sports as a human right. So she'll talk a little bit about that. Liz here, Liz is a powerhouse, has run 70 marathons, one in every state, and the other one, another one in China, in the Great Wall of China. So not only was it a marathon, but it was a bunch of steps, so you can imagine that. And she runs an organization called Girls with Soul out of Cleveland, and using her former time in foster care and her experiences with sexual abuse to really power through and show how sports can help women overachieve and overcome. And this little lady right here, how you doing, Lisa? This is Lisa Parks. She is a high school student, 16 years old, in the Bronx, and former track runner. And I say former because that's one of the reasons why we're here. She moved to New York City last year from Atlanta. She was a track and field superstar down in Atlanta, found she'd go to New York, go play and go run for her team and her school, only to find out that there was no team at her school. Tell me a little bit about that when you went to New York and you found out you couldn't run.
I was kind of disappointed.
Disappointed?
Yeah, I mean, you would think the schools will have sports.
Right.
I mean, come on. It's sports, why wouldn't you? But, yeah, I went with my grandma. That's the first thing we did. We was like, let's go sign up for track. Like, I gotta do it. And Mr. David, he told me, he was like, well, we don't have a track team. I was like, you don't have a track team? Well, I'm not going to the school. That's just
Right.
And my grandma was like, no, we already registered you and everything. So I was like, I can't go to this school. It has no track.
Right, so you felt like you were at a loss for something that you had in your life.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then it empowered you to do a little bit more. So Mr. David is part of now. Lisa is a main plaintiff in a lawsuit against New York City and their department there, their system that helps run sports. And to give a little background on that, basically they, according to the lawsuit, fund bigger schools, larger schools, which predominantly do not have Blacks and Latinos. The smaller schools don't get the sports teams. The larger schools that don't have predominantly Blacks and Latinos get the sports teams. And that's basically why you are fighting for exactly what your shirt says, fair play. What does that mean to you? Why are you involved in all this?
I'm involved in it because basically I got involved because I thought just for me. Yeah. I wasn't thinking of nobody else, just me. I wanted to play the sport that I wanted to play. Yeah. And then come to think of it, there was more kids that couldn't play the sport they wanted to play. So then I was just like, well, this isn't right. This isn't fair. So then it came to me that I'm not only fighting for myself, but I'm fighting for everybody else that doesn't have the sport.
And to that, we applaud you because that's an amazing thing. But Lisa, when it really comes down to it, it's really like, I mean, when I play volleyball and I stand on the court, when I run sometimes, like, it's that feeling you get when you're there. Like, take me to when you're on the track and you're like ready to go. Like, how do you feel?
Nervous. Like, the only thing I think, I'll be like, don't fall, because if you fall, it's over. Everybody gonna laugh at you.
No
Do not
way.
fall.
Nobody's laughing at you, but then that gun goes off and then you go.
I just go. Like, I'm not nervous no more. I just run, just to run. Like, run.
It's a great feeling for you.
It's a great feeling, yeah. My mom's normally right there, like right at the start line. So it's like, I look up, I'm running right past her. Like,
And it's that wind beneath her wings, literally, that sort of empowers her and is pushing her forward to do what she's doing. But Liz, I wanted to bring you in because Liz Ferro from Girls with Soul, you want to give girls that finishing line feeling. And I love that about like your organization, sort of that feeling there. You see it in the girls that you help in Cleveland. Just tell me about what you do.
Yeah, actually Finish Line Feeling is the title of my first book, but the reason why I do everything that I do, honestly, I was put on this planet for no other reason than to provide the finish line feeling for girls in need. I was in foster care when I was born. I was moved around between 4 foster homes, and there was some abuse and trauma in the homes. And when I was adopted, fortunately, my parents found that to build my confidence and my self-esteem and just give me a sense of belonging, they started putting me into sports. And they also saw that I had a lot of energy that needed to be burned out in a positive way. So if I use my powers for good instead of evil, the world is a happier place, especially for my family. Luckily, my parents noticed that right away. So they put me in sports, and things were great until I was about 8 years old. And then my neighbor started sexually abusing me for about a year. I was raped on and off by my neighbor. And unfortunately, when my mom found out about it, she didn't give me the support that I needed in terms of doing anything about it. It was just sort of, you know, sweep it under the rug, we can't tell anyone kind of thing. So I had a lot of anger and a lot of emotional problems and so forth. So basically why I'm saying all this is that I literally was put here and had to endure everything that I've been through because sports saved my life. And I was like, why am I not putting this together for kids who might not have the opportunity to figure it out on their own? So I bring, my program is a curriculum of athletics of all kinds, fitness, and it's mind, body, and soul fitness. So the curriculum also includes cognitive art projects and things that are self-awareness, self-esteem building projects. And then we also provide them with free running shoes, sports bras, and we take them to races so they can cross a finish line and get that feeling of empowerment and euphoria that, you know what, you can be stripped of a lot of things in your life, but accomplishing a physical goal like a finish line isn't one of them.
That's amazing. And it's actually really true, the way that this sort of translates beyond just sport. It's really a mind-body connection, and the mind is really where as you know, young girls start realizing that they can speak out. In your area, because you know, New York, Cleveland, LA, we're sort of seeing a lot of parallels with gender inequity, and like some of the sports that are allowed are very minimal. There's not a lot of opportunity. Are you seeing that there, and what are the things that you're trying to overcome in the schools that you help?
Definitely. I work with a lot of inner city schools, and if they have programs for girls at all or sports at all, it's usually football for the boys, if they have anything. No gym class at all, and if there is an opportunity for something for the girls, it's usually along the lines of cheerleading, which I'm not saying I have anything against cheerleading, I'm all for it or whatever, but I feel like that can't be the only option.
Right.
They have to have other things to pick from, and you know, that's what's going to make you overcome, make you rock out in life, is finding what makes your soul sing and what makes you feel like an amazing person, and you can't have someone tell you what that's going to be for you. So if it's running or if it's basketball, then they need to have that opportunity. So I work with a lot of residential treatment centers, and a lot of the girls that I work with, if they would have had the opportunity to have sports in their schools and maybe have that mind, body, and soul connection offered to them, they probably wouldn't be in residential treatment in the first place.
Absolutely, absolutely. And one thing I love that you say before is it's not that people are incapable, they're just never given the chance. So the chance, in both Lisa's case and in your case, is really where it comes down to. But, you know, Lisa, you're your student, and I think what we're talking about here is that sports isn't just about playing and doing a sport, it's about the mind-body connection, but it's really a human rights issue. And it's a human right for us to be able to have these opportunities. And Donna, with the IRC, I mean, you are seeing young ladies from violence, torture. I mean, these countries just treat women and girls just so poorly. How does what you do help some of these women sort of overcome what they've been through?
Right. Well, I think it's such an important conversation for us to be having, you know, in these days and times. Obviously, it really is a social justice issue and something that we're trying to educate people on. First and foremost, people come to the U.S. and come to this country because they have been displaced because of extraordinary situations in their home countries. They leave so much behind through that displacement, and oftentimes, even before they get to the U.S., they have had extended periods of time where they've been living in refugee camps, perhaps denied the opportunity to go to school. They certainly have oftentimes been denied the opportunity to look at any kind of skill building that will take them into the economic societies that they're entering into. So we've long known, especially for women and girls, that we needed to level out the playing field, especially for new women and girls who are arriving in this country. You can imagine what it's like when you've gone through that experience. You get off the plane, you land in San Diego, or you land in LA, and you think your fight is over and you can take a deep breath and move on with your life. And then you realize you have a whole new culture that you need to acclimate to, a very competitive culture, and that it's very difficult to compete with others in that environment if you haven't been tooled up for that. So that's really our goal, is to provide girls with the opportunity to advance as they're moving forward with their lives. The social emotional programs that we provide, and especially what we're doing through our soccer program, is meant to provide them with an opportunity to claim their own power again, to really build that cognitive ability that gives them the focus to be able to really go into an academic setting and get the most out of that. It teaches them team building, so it's how do you thrive and how do you work in a collegial environment where you have to be able to get along and cooperate. How can you build another social network when you've left all of that behind? And finally, how can you build that self-esteem that's going to enable you to really grow and thrive? And so that's what our soccer program is about. We use soccer as a tool to get there, but it's really all about that.
And have you seen, do you have any examples of some of these young ladies who have used that to move on, to succeed in other ways outside the program?
Absolutely. I think a big part of what we talk about is showing them what they're capable of. And so oftentimes they arrive with very few goals or dreams for themselves. And by the time they come through the soccer program, they've got a better chance to articulate what they think they can really do with their lives. One of the girls who's been through our program, and I believe she was actually shown on film, had gone through the soccer program, had never played soccer before, never seen soccer played before, played with us for one season and came back the next year and ended up coaching the girls program for the next year out. And then she actually went on and got a full-on scholarship to be able to go to college and play for her college, and now she's an all-star player.
Wow, that's amazing. That's so great. And then a lot of this too is about how sort of we feel about ourselves when we are part of sports and we do that thing. And I just read a study recently that said in the U.S. the 43% of high school students that actually play sports, they are more self-confident, they have more respect for themselves, they have more leadership skills. Lisa, you're in it right now. Like, do you find that, like, when you ran and when you were part of sports, like, did that make you feel more confident?
It did. It really did.
Yeah. And is that sort of what drives you with this? I mean, how has it been without sports in your life?
Well, I was pretty bad before sports. Like, I got in a lot of trouble and everything, not gonna lie. But starting playing sports and everything, my behavior changed, my attitude.
Yeah.
It was something I look forward to doing after school. So there was no more getting in trouble in class and everything, because they'll be like, I'll go tell your coach. So it's like, you get in trouble with coach, You gotta run them laps.
Right. I was gonna say, coach is almost harder than mom. My daughter says the same thing. She's like, I don't really care what you say, but if coach finds out, I'm in a lot of trouble.
I get my phone taken, but my legs gonna be hurting.
But it's true, and like that's really important to you because it's like, you know, maybe you're not realizing it, or maybe you are now because you don't have it. But do you realize how important sports was to you and how like it made you feel during that time, or was it later on when you're looking back and like, oh, now I don't have it?
It's kind of both.
Okay.
Yeah.
What
What was the question again? I forgot.
So just looking to see like, you know, not at all, please. How about this? What do you hope changes, right? So you're in this lawsuit. That's a big word. There's a lot going on. But just Lisa, 16-year-old, for your sister or for others that come behind you, what do you hope changes?
To me, I hope changes that in my school that kids just respect each other, basically, because we all want the same thing. We all want to play sports. We're there to learn. Let's respect each other and everything, because
That's the basis of it. Yeah. Unless you hear that, right? Like you hear her saying like respect each other and knowing, you know, that we need to have that. Part of the situation is that when we talk about women in sports, sometimes we talk about it in different ways that we talk about men in sports. You know, when you talk to some of your girls in there, do you say, listen, you're powerful, you're strong? Like, what are the key words that you use that are for all athletes?
Well, we have what we call the power principles in Girls of Soul, and also what rocks your life. So power stands for perseverance, optimism, wisdom, energy, and resilience. And those are all things that you learn from being an athlete, but then also that you can spill over and parlay into every area of your life. And ROCK is an acronym for resilience, optimism, courage, and killing stereotypes. And I think that that's major because, I mean, we're killing stereotypes every day as females, and not even, how about we just take away the word female athlete? Why can't we just be athletes?
Absolutely. Absolutely, yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Right, and it also helps, and Donna, I want you to, it also helps the girl see herself in a different way, don't you think?
Oh, definitely. And I think that, you know, that I keep showing up for them every week, even if they give me a hard time. They know Miss Liz will always be there, and I think that that means a lot in terms of showing that you believe in them so that they can believe in themselves, and then they just have a ripple effect of being able to boost other people up, and then they tell me how they've even changed lives in their own home and that their family life is different, and it all is based on being an athlete and in whatever shape or form that means to you. You don't have to swim the English Channel or be, you know, a WNBA player or whatever. If you have a body, you're an athlete. So it takes over how you carry yourself. It's kind of how you lift yourself and carry yourself out of bad places. Maybe have the confidence not to get into certain situations in the first place. Right. There's just so much that goes into it that these girls can take away. And like you said, all the kids want the same thing. And if you can be that example for them, how amazing is it to have that ripple effect? Just your legacy is going to change generations to come. It's pretty amazing stuff.
Oh, that's awesome. And Donna, you're, you know, looking at the posters behind us and listening to the panels today, it really is about changing social concepts of what it is, right? I mean, you know, hopefully we don't have to talk about gender equity when you're having your babies, like years and years from now. But
Better.
Yeah.
I know your mom's saying
Mama's here. I'm going to get in trouble.
Where is she?
But it is the social concept, and especially with the young ladies that you deal with, because their social concept is from everywhere. But in this country, in the climate that we're in right now, what are you seeing that are some of the challenges in you know, getting more folks to understand that that's what it is?
Well, I think it's fair to say when I first started doing this work, most of us who were involved in working with the organization really saw ourselves as service providers, and now it's about education and advocacy and activism. Because what we really want people to understand is, number one, that the families that we're working with, they're already winners before they ever arrive. And then beyond that, you know, we really see what we're doing as a part of creating the kind of community we all want to live in. You know, when you look at the video and you see the girls who are out on the field who are playing, you know, which one of those girls wouldn't you want to welcome to the U.S.? Which one of those girls would you want to call a threat? It's really about breaking down those stereotypes. And so it's a way of engaging the community because we've got a common ground language. Everybody understands sports, just like everybody understands breaking bread together. So it's a common place where we can all go that creates that neutral organization where we can really celebrate each other and the differences and the strengths that we individually bring to the table.
With what you do, you've been doing it for so long, and you're all of you here sort of changing the moments in the lives that you are having within your own communities. But I like real takeaways, right? Because I think in LA, San Diego, and Cleveland, and New York, we're all feeling the same thing. So Donna, I'll start with you. What can we all do in our communities when we're looking at this inequity and sometimes folks not having the ability to find their voice? What can we do to change that?
You know, I think we always look for the really big things that can make a difference, but I really truly believe that a lot of it is welcoming the person who looks different than yourself. When we look around our communities, if you really think about it, we all came from somewhere. Not most of us are transplants from someplace other than where we are. And if you get to know the person and their story, that's a really important aspect of breaking down those barriers. So, you know, look for the person who feels a little uncomfortable and welcome that individual into the fold, because we've all been that person at one point in time.
Well, the same thing for you. I mean, what you're doing in Cleveland is amazing, but how can we do this in LA and anywhere else?
Well, I think obviously Girls with Soul, at some point I would like it to grow way beyond Cleveland because it's something that can be easily duplicated anywhere. But in the meantime, I think it's really important maybe to shine a light on the fact that funding and places like the LA 84 Foundation, I mean, Renata didn't pay me to say this, but I'm just so grateful to those organizations, and they're so needed because the funding just isn't there. And I know basic needs are what gets funded first, but I think it's really important to concentrate on the fact that staying alive and not committing suicide and not cutting yourself every day and is a basic need, you know? Yeah. So mental health that comes with, and the confidence that comes with being an athlete, it's not, you know, jocks are stupid and rocks for jocks in college and all the stuff that all the old school sayings that we used to make fun of athletes. It's quite the opposite, and without that knowledge and being able to figure out the mind-body-soul connection, I think that if we could just have more communities focus on it, we're going to come really far. And these are our future leaders. You know, they need that confidence. They need that health in mind, body, and soul. So if we could just focus on that, I think we'd come really far.
Yeah, absolutely, Liz. And you're making a good point about that connection is really something that we can all do within our daily lives, or within, you know, seeing a need in our own communities.
Yeah, when I first started Girls with Soul, it was the height of the recession in 2009, and everybody told me I was crazy, which I was used to because I've been crazy my whole life. So I was like, whatever. Luckily,
crazy is good. I'm down to like that crazy is good nowadays.
It's good crazy now. It used to be bad crazy, but we won't talk about that. That could take years and years. But the point of that is you know, I said that I was going to continue on with what I wanted to do, and people thought that I was nuts, but I figured if I helped one kid and it fizzled and died and didn't succeed by other people's standards, then I still did an amazing thing. And now I have kids who literally are not committing suicide anymore because of Girls with Soul. So, you know, like you said earlier, I heartily agree. People want to do these huge things, these huge undertakings, but, you know, these aren't supposedly basic needs. It's small by a lot of people's standards, but makes such a huge impact.
Right. So if we can help it within our communities with funding, with other ways of volunteering, with becoming involved,
Yeah.
that's one of the main ways of doing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also wanted to say too that like being an athlete doesn't mean that you are the 70 marathon person or the the one that goes to the major leagues. Very small percentage of that. Like everyone can be an athlete at any point in time, and that's the beauty of it, right?
Yep.
Lisa, you want me to ask the question again? I'm gonna ask it. What do you want? What do you want to happen? What do you think we can do? Like, what can I do in LA if I find that someone doesn't have the sport that another school district gets? What would you tell a kid like you?
Well, certainly not to move, but
All right, I can't move.
Don't move.
I gotta stay there.
yeah. What would I say? No.
Keep fighting? Yeah?
Do what you think you need to do. Start something. Build up your confidence, because if you build it up, it'll get others to build it up. And that's all you need. You need more than one person.
But someone's gotta start it,
Somebody's got to start it.
right? And that's you.
That's you.
Amazing.
And last thing, before we get out to the audience and talk to folks, but I was talking to my friend, Dr. Nicole Lavoie, who I met here at one of these organizations from the Tucker Center for Research on Girls and Women in Sport. They just came out with a report in 2018 that's a little bit sobering that says young girls are stagnant and actually on a downward trend to getting physical activity. I thought we would be better. And some of the things are having female role models, understanding that girls aren't monolithic, but also the power of social media and what we put out there and how we hashtag something and how we see someone, not the pretty girl that plays sports, but just, wow, did you see how powerful she was? How important is it, social media, since we're talking about young girls and going out there, just quickly from each of you, when you talk about an athlete that you like, how do you represent them when you tweet about them or put them on Instagram?
Brave.
Brave. I love that. Liz, what do you think? What should we be saying?
I think resilience is key because it boils down to being able to overcome, and that's what being an athlete teaches you to do, and then you can use it everywhere.
Yeah. Donna?
I think courageous. Women are courageous when they step out and they prove to themselves above and beyond everyone else what they're capable of doing.
Yeah.
And I think they become role models for the next person coming behind them, such as Lisa for her sister.
And the layered part of being a woman, I mean, we are mothers. I joke all the time, we are mothers. I do 4 jobs before I even get to my real job every day. And knowing how to use that as a positive. What do you think about the parents, the mothers behind these children and helping them understand why their child should be playing sports? Because not everyone has a great mama like Lisa. Sometimes it's hard to push them. What do you guys find with that part of it?
Well, I think it goes a lot of different directions, but I also find too that the kids or the young people, the youth, can be teachers to the parents. And so I think that kids who want to play also need to stand up for their ability to participate in sports. And in doing so, they can also show parents the power that sports can play in their lives.
Liz, do you see the same thing?
I do, but a lot of the kids that I serve don't have parents. They're in foster care or they've been removed. They're a ward of the state. So I think that it's just important to be able to bring programs that show the importance of sports directly to the girls where they are. So they might not have a home life, so to speak, but that doesn't mean that they aren't worthy of being introduced to that mind-body-soul connection. So like I said earlier, funding programs that are bringing these programs to the girls where they are is really important. And I think finding the collaboration between the agencies and the institutions that might be housing these kids, making them see the importance, because they're sort of acting as the caregivers.
It's a great other good point of taking this locally. Well, you heard from all of them. We have the brave Lisa, the resilient Liz, and the courageous Donna. Thank them so very much for being here on this panel.